All right, good morning, sixth graders. Mr. Pog coming at you here from the apartment today. Day that I'm filming this is April 1st, but I promise, because I'm terrible at it, I'm not going to give you any April Fool's jokes today. We're going to keep it real. We're going to start with looking at your warm-up for today, which, as you can see, is asking you to think as someone who lived in Europe at the time of the sugar explosion that came from Saint-Domingue or from the Caribbean. And I want you to try to think to yourself, what would you feel if you knew the kind of horrors that these slaves that were producing the sugar for you had to go through in order to put it on your breakfast cereal in the morning or whatever you put your sugar on? And I think it's an important exercise to understand because today we're going to start moving into Haiti's movement towards trying to become independent. And I think a lot of it, if not all of it, comes from this idea of them being exploited in these sugar plantations and only living to be 24, 25 years old. Okay, so make sure that you get that done first. Go ahead and submit that if you haven't done it already. Okay, now for today, you're going to be finishing the rest of Reading Guide 2. That's actually going to be due for Monday, right? Because today is Friday, the 17th. So you'll be finishing that. And then on Monday, we'll be taking some notes, okay? So for Monday, that should be the last thing that you're doing for the packet before you end up turning it in. The note sheet that you have, if you want to tear that out of the back side, that would be fine. I'll remind you that on Monday, okay? But for now, let's get this reading guide done. And before we end up doing that, I just want to go over a brief talking about the three main leaders of this independence movement from Saint-Domingue or Haiti. Now, if you decide to, this is optional. I attached this document here, and this document is a graphic organizer of the three main leaders that we're going to actually end up talking about right now. So you have some options here, okay? If you want to do this, you can do it from what you read about these three people in your book. They're all going to be in there, okay? So you could do that. You could, if you have it, because I will be sending this home in the paper document as well, you could also take notes as we're going along, because it probably will help you for a future quiz to have a pretty decent understanding of these three people. You also have the option to not do it, okay? This is an optional thing. I don't want you to think that you're forced along with everything else that we're doing, okay? So we've got, starting in 1791, we have this gentleman here. Now, we need to go back to 1789 and remember that in France, that Declaration of the Rights of Man was passed, right? Former Third Estate creates the National Assembly. That's an awesome thing for those people that were exploited for hundreds or so years. But you're also thinking about these people that are under French rule in Saint-Domingue or Haiti, right? And they read a specific line saying that all men, regardless of class, were created and should be treated as equal. And a lot of these slaves, those that were allowed to see it anyway, or were able to sneak and see it, thought that that also applied to them because they're considered men or human. And it's a pretty solid argument. Obviously, the French did not want them to see it because they figured that that might cause a problem in them trying to rebel and get those same rights. And it only took 2 years before we start to see that happening with this gentleman here. Now, he's known as Duty Boukman. We think of it as a nickname today. He's kind of what we call a mythical figure. Not much is really known about him. Boukman implies that he was able to read, like as the word book. So he would have been a literate slave, and chances are is that if he was a real person, there are actually some people that believe that he might not have been real. That he was a very, very physically imposing, large, scary man who also was a priest of voodoo. Now, as you're going to read in your text, voodoo is a religion that combines two old elements. Okay, so one is going to be original Christianity that they're going to be absorbing from the French, and then the other half is going to be from traditional African religious traditions, right? And we see this over time a lot. You have two cultures blend together rather than having just one blot out everything of the other. They end up kind of combining. And we see that a lot in languages today. Like in English, English ended up being a Germanic language at first, and now it's combined with a whole bunch of other Latin elements, and we get the hodgepodge of a language that's impossible to teach people to this day, right? Now, this Boukman, or Duty Boukman, as he's known, he decides to organize a huge slave revolt, okay? So it's called the Night of Fire in 1791. He gets a whole bunch of slaves together, and they start lighting fires in plantations all over Haiti. And the slaves were asked to look for these fires, and when they saw them smoking, they knew it was time to rise up all at once. And what happened is a mass killing of a whole bunch of European people. Okay. In fact, there are some reports of this Night of Fire in 1791 claiming the lives of over 50,000 people. Okay. Now, this was not the first slave rebellion at all, not even close, but it was by far the largest. And it created such an impact on the relations between slaves and masters that after this, the people that were enslaved in Haiti were going to continuously push for freedom. All the others were put down in the past, and the old tradition of slavery was reinstituted. But this one was different in not only the amount of death that it caused, but the brutality in which the French did end up putting it down with put the people in the situation in Haiti that they weren't going to turn back anymore. And we have Boukman to thank for that. Now, I would love to give you a backstory on this gentleman, but I really can't. And that's because not many know too much about him, except for the fact that he was literate, he was a huge man, and that he was a priest, which would probably attributed to his ability to be a leader. Now, the next person that we're going to talk about, I know more about. And that's because he was a leader of this Haitian revolution for about 12 years. And he is a very, very well documented person. In fact, you could argue that he's almost like the George Washington of Haiti. Okay. Now, his name is Toussaint Louverture. And it's an interesting name because translated into English, Toussaint means all saints, meaning that either he was born in a very Christian religious family, or some people believe that he might have been born on a religious holiday called All Saints Day, which is November 1st, and that's how he got the name. Now, his surname is a nickname. L'Ouverture actually means the opening, okay? And the reason is because when he would fight in battles with the French, he was known as somebody who could find an opening in a line, no matter how small, puncture through it, and defeat anybody who was coming up against him. Okay, now Louverture actually was somebody when he was a young man fought on the side of the French, and his first occupation or his first job was that of a medical doctor. He would actually carry a very, very large pouch on his back. And a lot of people believe when they would see him on horseback that he actually had a spinal deformity because it looked like he had a huge hunchback. But in actuality, what he had on was a medical kit that he would use to help treat wounded soldiers. Now, for 12 years, Louverture is going to be the leader of this Haitian revolution. And as you can see by his hat, he tries to dress as to appear like he is a European general. In fact, once things really get underway towards the late 1700s, because he's going to be a leader for 1791 to 1803, Napoleon is going to be taking power in France. And a lot of people believe that the garb in which he's dressed in is almost identical to what Napoleon wore. And people believe that he did that in order to have that aura or that appearance of leadership for the people of Haiti during this time. Now, they fought in what we would call guerrilla warfare, meaning that they would hide out and do ambush attacks because for the most part, they could not meet the French directly. If they did, they would be beat down very, very quickly. Okay, so for the most part, they're hiding out, but L'Ouverture does a fantastic job of being a real pain in the side of these French people. And unfortunately for him, he probably would have ended up defeating the French, but he was betrayed by somebody who was secretly working for Napoleon. He was brought into a jail cell and was executed in the hope that when he was killed, the French would see that they would take their leader out and then the Haitian Revolution would end. Unfortunately, not even close. And just like the amount of people that we've talked about, Julius Caesar, Jesus Christ, Joan of Arc, he becomes a martyr, right? So now people are going to rally behind this cause even more than ever before. Now, the person that takes up the mantle of Toussaint L'Ouverture is named Jean-Jacques Dessalines. Okay, now I want you to remember, right? These people were former French slaves. So even though they're fighting the French, they're still going to have these very, very French-sounding names. That's because a lot of them were former slaves born into it. Jean-Jacques Dessalines was. Toussaint L'Ouverture, even though he becomes a doctor, he was a slave at first. And Boukman, though many don't know too much about him, he was believed to have been a slave, or at least somebody who worked in a plantation when he was young. Okay, so Dessalines, he's going to end up taking over upon Toussaint L'Ouverture's death because the people are so galvanized or they're so behind the cause after his death. He makes really, really quick work of the French. He takes on Napoleon's army directly, and after fighting for 12 years, Napoleon sees that this colony is bankrupting France, right? They're putting so much effort into fighting back against this colony that's rebelling that eventually France is going to really run into some financial problems. And it's for this reason, actually, that the United States is going to purchase the Louisiana Territory from the French, because Napoleon needs to raise money after all of it that he spent in Haiti. He ends up deciding to leave, and Haiti is declared independent, no longer known as the colony of Saint-Domingue. They are an independent nation that is going to hopefully shed off the shackles of slavery and start anew with new relations towards its people. Unfortunately, Dessalines runs into a very similar problem that many first leaders do when taking over from an oppressed society. We see this from Julius Caesar, right? He takes over, things appear to be grand, heading towards a new future, and he's quickly assassinated because he ends up getting out of touch and becomes a dictator. Same thing happens with Dessalines. All of a sudden, the French are gone, and it seems like things are going back to the way that they used to be. In the beginning, he tries to tell people that the reason why he's returning people to slavery is so that Haiti can make enough money to cover all of the debts that it needed to pay for the War of Independence. Unfortunately, as time goes on, it doesn't stop. The money starts rolling in, and it doesn't seem like he's willing to put an end to this system that's greatly benefiting him. So he is going to be arrested because he went against his word, and he is going to be assassinated by the people that he worked so hard to free because he went against what he said he was going to do as a dictatorial leader. Now, just really quickly, I thought this was interesting. This is the first Haitian flag that's going to be adopted right upon the independence, and it was reportedly made by Dessalines. And what he did was he took a French tricolor flag and he ripped out the white coloring. And I think even though the white coloring was supposed to represent the House of Bourbon, I think he took it out because to him, the white coloring represented white people. And he sewed the other two parts together. So you have the blue, which he saw as representing the African population, the freed African population of Haiti, and then the people of mixed ancestry, whether it's African, Native American, European, whatever it may be, as the red half of the flag. Now, it would be changed in a couple years, but it kind of is interesting that he still wanted to keep something of the French culture, albeit ripping the white out of the flag. It still was created by an old French flag. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, for tomorrow, make sure that you get your exit ticket done after this. According to your notes you took today, who did Dessalines defeat to achieve Haiti's independence? You may not have been taking direct notes, but whether it's from the video here or it's from your reading, you should be able to answer that. You don't need to answer in complete sentences. For tomorrow, you should be finishing up that reading guide, so it should be questions 10 through 20. And we will see you on Monday. That's all I have for you today. Have an awesome weekend. As always, make good choices, keep safe social distance, and we will see you after the weekend's over. Have a good one, ladies and gents.